Hi everyone, welcome back. So for today's card, I thought I'd do a one layer watercolor card, and I have just recently got on the lovely legs bandwagon, and I have Colorado Craft Company's lovely legs, and this is the Tombstone Witch that we're going to use, and we're going to use parts and pieces from this stamp set for the entire card. So I have I want to say it's a mixed media cardstock. I think it's about A6, UK A6, A2-ish size, ish. So what we're going to do is some masking, and I love this. I'm going to use Ink on 3's Detailed Black. It's a watercolor, a waterproof and a hybrid ink, so it means you can use your watercolors with it or your alcohol markers, which is awesome. So what I initially did was I put the tombstone where I wanted that to sit, and then I laid my witchy legs on top of it to see, sort of, so that she looks like she's going to be sitting on top of the tombstone. So this is the idea of the stamp set as well. And I then have taken off the tombstone and just used the lid of my this is the Tim Holtz stamp platform. I've used the lid of that to pick up the legs. What you want is whatever's in front of something is what you stamp first, so that when you go to stamp the next piece, it will look like it's sitting behind. Obviously we have to mask off the legs, which I've already cut those out. You'll see in another project coming up, unless it's been uploaded before this one. You'll see the legs. It's the same legs I used in that project. So yeah, so now that I've done the stamping of my legs, not my legs but the legs, I'm layering on the mask that I created. So I used some it's like full adhesive masking paper, not masking paper, post-it note in quotes, air quotes, and just literally stamped the image on there and then cut it out. Now this is quite detailed, so I will keep this mask because it took me a little while to actually cut that thing out, but it's worth doing. And you'll see her shoe, I actually cut a piece, it tore, so I will still pop that back on there and it works perfectly fine. So now that we have our image of the legs, which is what's going to sit on top of the tombstone, we've now masked them off, and I'm just making sure that that's stuck down as much as it can be, and then I'm going to take my tombstone and I'm going to line it up as best I can, because obviously these are brand new. You can see I've not even used these stamps before making this video, and so I don't have a black line on this stamp itself, you know, where it's had some ink, you know, used some ink on it already. So I'm trying to, as best I can, line up with her hand, her bottom and the legs to make sure they kind of work on the tombstone, so it looks like she's sat on them rather than, you know, looking like she's just at a weird angle on them. So I've got that in place, and then again I'm going to pick up the stamp with my platform lid and ink it up and stamp it a few times. I think I did about 3 or 4 times to stamp it, just so that I could get a nice impression. And also, like I say, they're brand new stamps, so the more you use your stamps and the more you ink and clean them and ink and clean them, the better they will be. And they will also, it's kind of like it conditions the stamp basically. So just stamping that back and forth with some ink, the same ink, because I'm going to watercolor today. And yeah, super easy. So it doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will when we take the mask off, which you'll see in a second. So just cleaning off my stamp and then popping that back on the carrier sheet. And then I'm going to take the mask, even the little broken piece, and I'm just going to pop that in with the stamp set so that I've always got that. I just stuck it to the back of the stamp set once I put the carrier sheet back on. That way it's always there. Like I say, it was a bit fiddly to get it to to cut it out, and I'm not the best at cutting things out by hand anymore. So yeah, when you make a mask like that, keep it handy with this stamp set. Then you've got it as long as it'll last, kind of thing. It is paper at the end of the day, so eventually you'll have to do a new one. But you know, if you want to make a few of these, that should work. So for my sentiment, again, I'm using one of the sentiments out of the same stamp set. I chose the one that says "I've been waiting for you," which I thought was kind of apt and funny, because she's a witch and she's waiting on the tombstone for whoever it is. I thought it kind of sounded a bit saucy, but you know, it could just be that whole witching hour thing, you know, curses and stuff. It could be that as well, but you never know. But I just thought it made sense. And then what I did was I lined up the Y of the U sort of into her, what would be her body. And it just kind of made that whole piece, or, you know, the whole, made it kind of part of the image, if that makes sense. And I thought it worked quite well. So I lined that up, and again, used the lid of my stamp platform to pick up the stamp, and then inked it a few times. Again, brand new stamps. The more you ink them, the better they get. So cleaning that off and getting that back in its package. And then I will give you a sort of a quick close-up of what we've done here on the panel, and then we'll get to watercoloring. So for the watercolors today, I decided to go back through all my watercolors. I have a drawer full of them. And so this is a good time, if you like your stamping and watercoloring, to go back and find old product that maybe you've had for a long time that you haven't used for a long time. So I dragged out my Peerless watercolors. These are something else. They are so cool. I have them set up on bits of paper. These are the blocks that they came in. I actually took a slither of each of the colors and set up a little thing for my mum, which she has. But basically they're like a, I mean, you need to read the story about it, but they're kind of like a, I don't know, like a fabric-y paper. I don't know how to describe it, but believe me, even if you touched the top of one of these little pieces of paper, that's how they came, because I got the 40 pack, like variety pack kind of thing. If you barely touch that, the moisture in your hands will react with it. You will have this stuff everywhere. So be very careful. It is highly, highly pigmented watercolors that are kind of like I say, they're kind of like embedded into this like fabric-y paper type stuff. I don't know how they do it, but it's very clever. And they were very popular many years ago. So I grabbed, like I say, the variety pack, and I've just been, I literally stuck them with a bit of adhesive just to a cardstock piece, wrote the name, and then did a little scribble of the, not scribble, the paint, but a little sample next to it so I could see what the colour is, because the colour on the block does not look like the colour when it comes out or when you start playing with it. So good idea to have a sample pack of what those colours actually look like. The nice thing about that sample pack is it does have all the names of them, which helps enormously. I love that when companies do that. And so all I did was I made my own kind of like setup for them. So I've got like a colour sample, and the block is above it, above the name as well. So I'm taking, I think it's the vermilion, I can't say that word. I thought it was the most blood moon colour-ish that I thought this worked, and the more we play with this, the more you'll see how it just works. So I'm starting with my background and using a paintbrush. You know me, I prefer a paintbrush and water than a watercolor aqua marker brush thing that I never know the name of. You know, the ones that you fill with water. I just prefer a brush and water. And I went with kind of a blood moon thing. I think at the time when I did this, there was a blood moon, if I remember right. Don't quote me on that because I can't remember exactly when it was. But when I filmed this, I'm sure that was, I'd either watched something that had a blood moon in it, or we actually had one. So I just thought that this, and I know it looks very orange on screen, but it's quite intense color. Like I say, it's very pigmented, and just literally washing that, so to speak, the paint over the cardstock. Now these paints on this, I think this is mixed media paper. It's just from a local stationer to me, and I quite like a lot of their like watercolor paper and stuff. But it didn't, I don't know if it's the paint or the paper, but it didn't sort of do kind of what I did. I just done the other project as well, which you'll see coming up, which is also watercolored. But I don't know, maybe it's the paint, and it just didn't seem to do and move the way that it did on the way the other ones did, the other project. So that probably doesn't make any sense unless you've seen the other one, but I don't know what it was. It just moved very differently on this paper. And like I say, it could be the paper, it could be the paint. I haven't used these guys for a long time. We're talking probably a few years, which is shocking because I have them. But it could be that I'm just not used to them, because every paint that you pick up, like every watercolor, if you love watercoloring like I do, they're all a little different. Like they all play differently. So that's why it's a good idea to not only play with them, but also to play on different papers, different cardstocks, a cheap watercolor paper, a more expensive one, mixed media papers, which I think I've said this already, that this is what I think this one is, all those different things, and just play, and then you'll get a feel for it. And it's when you have a little play that is when you learn about the paint and what papers just work better with it. So this one for me was okay-ish. And I do love how it turns out, but it moved very, very odd on this paper. So I've got my background in, and yes, I should have carried on there. You see, I hesitated on the ground. I should have actually carried on, but we're just going to say she's on a little mound. You'll see in the end it looks a little funny, but it's fine. So I'm going through my colours again. So I've done the background, my red sky, blood moon sky, whatever I'm calling it. And then I'm going to I think I'm going to do the ground next. No, I'm not. I'm going to do my witch next. So I'm going to start with her hat. And I've just taken some amethyst, as you saw there. And like I say, you pick up, the paintbrush is wet. It's not sopping wet. So it's not dripping with water, but I barely touch. You can see the wet mark on that little corner of the square. You barely touch it, and the amount of pigment that gets picked up is incredible. I love them. What can I say? There was, like I say, they were super trendy like many years ago, but I do love them. They're just fun to work with. So I'm going to have a purple hat, as you can see, because why not? And purple and red, if you're not sure about what colours to put together in that, and for the longest time I wasn't sure, and even every now and again I still get like that, grab a colour wheel just as a guide, and then at least you could see what colours are sort of harmonious, so the ones that kind of work together, the ones that are contrasting but still work together. So I can't remember which one these two are. I think they're contrasting ones. Don't quote me on that. But they're basically the ones that are opposite each other on the colour wheel will work together. The ones next to each other will work together. So that just might help some of you if you're not sure what colours to put together, because I have that trouble sometimes. I sit there thinking, what colour can I put with what? Or what colour scheme am I going to go with? There's a couple of places online that you can, will give you those ideas. And there's also like different apps that you can download for free that will just give you those color ideas and generate different color, color themes, if you will. Anyway, so I'm carrying on with the purple, with the amethyst, and now I'm doing her stockings because, every witch needs purple striped stockings. So grabbing that colour and then just popping that on there. Very easy watercolouring. I don't do anything difficult on this channel, you know that. Anybody who's been here long enough, you know that we do super simple on this channel. I do not do it if it's difficult because I probably couldn't do it if I wanted to. So don't be intimidated by anything that you see. There's always a way to do something and everybody can do this. So I've got her stockings on there, or the start of them. And then just getting the rest of her stockings for the purple bits anyway. So that's also what I will do. I will, especially with watercolor, I will I will watercolor the different areas of as many of the same color at the same time, because then when you go back with a different color, hopefully that area is then dry or dry enough. Because if it's not dry enough, you will find that because it's watercolor and water attracts to like itself kind of thing, it will then just seep into and try and blend with the color next to it. So that's just an idea too, is just make sure that wherever you're starting on your areas or wherever you're moving to next, just make sure they're dry before you do that, and you'll be fine. It's really, really cool. So I think that's my purple. I haven't got the card in front of me, so I can't remember. So it's like I'm doing this with you. So I went with purple gloves as well. And again, this is very easy, simple watercoloring. So something else that I've been doing recently is I'm trying to go back into like live, not lives, what I call live, not lives. So I may be doing more of those. Let me know how you feel about those. I think there should be a couple of videos up already, or at least one. Let me know how you feel about that. Or like with this video, although I think I've sped this section up a little bit. I can't remember now. No, I think this is in real time. I'm either going to do that so that you don't hear all the clunking and the, the cats meowing and all that sort of fun stuff in the background while I'm actually painting. Because I do, especially with watercolouring and painting and that, I do tend to zone out a bit. It's good therapy. So these will definitely have voiceovers on them, but I'm going to try and keep them in real time or not sped up too much so that I can sort of walk you through it. But let me know. You might not like that. You might prefer having just completely sped up videos. I know some of you have said how sometimes the sped up ones are a little too quick, which is fine. I can make that work. So this is about inspiring each other and inspiring in this community. So that's what we need to do. So just going to carry on getting this painted. I'm going to use the black for her witch's hat, the rest of her stockings, the rest of her outfit. I'll use some greys and that on her, on the Tombstone, can't think. And that's basically a watered down version of the black colour. And I just stuck it to the front of a card, a white card base. And that's it. Super easy, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed this. And until next time, bye for now.